Hi, in this video we want to sketch the quadratic graph with equation y is equal to x squared minus 9. Now, quadratic graphs, when we were plotting them, we always saw that they had either shape like this, like a smiley face shape, or they had a frowny shape like this. And actually the way you can tell is you look at the number in front of the x squared. The number in front of the x squared is effectively 1, it's like 1x squared. And if that number is positive, then you have this shape here. So if the x squared term is positive, so a positive x squared term, it's going to be the smiley face shape. If it's a negative x squared term, like minus x squared or minus 2x squared, then it's going to be the hill shape. So we know it's going to be this shape like this. But what we need to do first in order to sketch it is to find the roots and the y-intercepts. So the roots are the x-intercepts. So where does the graph cut the x-axis? And then we've also got the y-intercept as well. Now, to find the y-intercept, for example, any point on the y-axis, the x value is 0. So let's say when x is equal to 0, what would y be? Okay, so y, if we substitute it in, is going to be 1 times 0 squared, or just 0 squared, subtract 9, and that is minus 9. So when x is 0, y is minus 9. Let's plot that. 0 minus 9 is here. So we've got the y-intercept. And remember, the quick way to read off the y-intercept is just to look at the constant term, which is usually at the end. So it's the minus 9 here, right? Minus 9. Okay, when we want the x-intercept, that's where the y value is 0. So if we make y 0, when y is 0, then we've got x squared minus 9 equals 0. So x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. Then what we do is we factorize that. Now, can you see that this is the difference of two squared things? We call it the difference of two squares. And when that happens, you have two brackets like this with a plus in the middle of the one of them and a minus in the middle of the other. And then you do the square root of each of these things. The square root of x squared is x. So you put that as the first thing of each bracket. And then the square root of the 9 is 3. So you put that as the second thing of each bracket. And now that we've factorized this expression, we just make each of those brackets 0. So if x plus 3 is equal to 0, then we get x is minus 3, because minus 3 plus 3 would give you 0, wouldn't it? And remember, the quick way to do it is just to negate that number. So the plus 3 becomes negative 3. Or if the second bracket is 0, so if x minus 3 is 0, what minus 3 is 0? Well, it's 3, isn't it? So x would have to be 3. So when x is minus 3 or 3, y would be 0. So let's plot that. We've got 3, 0, and minus 3, 0. And now we know it's got to be this shape here, the smiley face shape here. And to be honest, you can tell that from these 3 points. You can't have a frowny face, a hill shape that goes through these 3 points, can you? All 3 of them. So we're just going to put a line that goes through them. So it's going to be like this. And there we go. So that is the shape. But if you're doing this on the platform, you should have 3 kind of control points that you can drag around, and it will draw the graph for you through those. Okay, what about the second one? We're going to do the same thing. Firstly, note that this x squared term here is again positive. It's 1x squared. So we know it's going to be this smiley face shape on the right here. And again, we're going to find the x and y intercepts first. So to find the y-intercept, remember the quick way of doing it is just this term at the end. That's the y-intercept. So it cuts the y-axis at minus 4. So it's 0 minus 4, which is here. Now let's find the x-intercepts. So where does this graph cut the x-axis? That's where y is 0. So let's do that. When y is 0, we're going to substitute in y is 0. So 0 equals x squared plus 3x minus 4. So we've got 0 equals x squared plus 3x minus 4. Now we've got a quadratic equation that we need to solve. How do we solve that? Well, we need to find two numbers that add to give the middle number of 3, so the coefficient of the x, and times to give the constant term, usually the last number. So they add to give the number in front of the x, and they times to give this constant term here, the number without the x. What are those numbers? Well, it is 4 and minus 1, isn't it? 4 and minus 1, they add to give 3, they times to give minus 4. So what we do is we have 2 brackets, and we use those two numbers. So it's x plus 4 and x minus 1. And if we've got a product of two brackets is equal to 0, then one of these brackets has to be 0. So we've factorized this. We now have to consider each of these two brackets as 0. So if the x plus 4 was equal to 0, what's plus 4 is 0? Well, it's minus 4. And you can see that works. That if x was minus 4 plus 4 is 0. 0 times anything would be 0, wouldn't it? So that works. And then if the x minus 1 was 0, you get x is equal to 1. And then, so each of those values of x gives you a y value of 0. So we got minus 4, 0. And when x is 1, y is 0. So we get these points. And now we know we have a kind of smiley face shape, so it's got to go through them. And also note that because a quadratic graph is symmetrical, it has a line of symmetry in the middle. The line of symmetry occurs between these two x-intercepts, right? So what is halfway between minus 4 and 1? Well, if we find the mean of the two values, we add 1 and minus 4, we get minus 3. If you halve that, you get minus 1.5. So we know that the kind of line of symmetry is going to be halfway between these two x values here. And then that will kind of help us draw it a bit more accurately. So it's going to be something like this. Go through there, up, making sure you go exactly through those 3 points. But as I say, if you're doing this on my site, then you just drag these 3 control points and then it will draw the kind of correct quadratic curve through those 3 points for you.